Somewhere on this planet right now, two people are kissing for the very first time, and neither of them has any idea they're repeating a behavior that stretches back tens of thousands of years. Kissing seems like the simplest thing in the world, two mouths pressing together for a few seconds, but almost nothing about it makes obvious biological sense. It doesn't help you reproduce directly. It doesn't feed you. It puts your face directly next to someone else's mouth, which, from a purely survival-driven standpoint, sounds less like romance and more like an unnecessary risk. And yet it shows up, in some form, across an overwhelming majority of human cultures throughout history. The truth is that kissing likely didn't start as a romantic gesture at all. Mothers feeding their infants mouth to mouth. Before humans had the tools, technology, or food processing methods we take for granted today, some early human mothers would chew solid food into a soft paste and pass it directly from their own mouth into their baby's mouth. This wasn't affection in the way we think of it now, it was survival, plain and simple, a way to get nutrients into a child too young to chew tough food on its own. Some researchers argue this single practical behavior planted the earliest neurological seed connecting mouth-to-mouth contact with safety, closeness, and trust, long before it ever became associated with romance. From there, the theory goes, that same neural wiring, mouth contact equals safety and bonding, got repurposed by evolution for an entirely different job, helping adults figure out who they should be attracted to. This is where one of the most interesting scientific explanations for kissing comes in, and it has almost nothing to do with emotion and everything to do with biology working silently in the background. When two people kiss, their faces get closer than almost any other type of human contact, which means they are, often without realizing it, exchanging an enormous amount of biological information. Saliva carries traces of hormones, scent compounds, and even signals related to a person's immune system. Some researchers believe kissing may function as an unconscious biological test, a way for the body to gather chemical information about a potential partner that no amount of conversation could ever reveal. This idea connects to something called the MHC theory, which stands for Major Histocompatibility Complex, a set of genes responsible for immune system diversity. Studies have found that humans are subconsciously more attracted to the scent of partners whose MHC genes differ significantly from their own, likely because offspring from genetically diverse immune profiles tend to have stronger, more resilient immune systems. Kissing, some scientists argue, may be one of the ways the human body performs this genetic compatibility check in real time, using scent and taste receptors packed into the lips and nose to gather information the conscious mind has no direct access to. In other words, that flutter of attraction or hesitation during a first kiss might not just be nerves. Not every culture historically expressed romantic affection through kissing, and this detail matters more than people assume. Anthropological surveys of societies with little to no outside contact, including some communities in sub-Saharan Africa, parts of the Amazon, and various Pacific Island cultures, found that romantic mouth kissing was either extremely rare or entirely absent before contact with outside groups. Some of these cultures instead expressed intimacy through nose rubbing, close facial proximity paired with inhaling a partner's scent, or gentle biting, all of which seem to be doing the same underlying job as kissing, gathering close-range sensory information about a partner, just through a different physical action. This detail is actually one of the strongest arguments for the sniffing and information gathering theory of kissing, because it suggests the drive behind the behavior is universal even when the specific physical form of it isn't. Once we look at the archaeological and historical record, the trail gets surprisingly old. The earliest confirmed written references to romantic kissing come from ancient Bronze Age texts in South Asia, dating back roughly 3,500 years, describing people sniffing with their mouths in a way scholars interpret as an early form of kissing. For a long time, popular history credited the spread of romantic kissing to ancient Greece and Rome, assuming it traveled westward from there into European culture. But more recent research pushes the timeline back much further and in a different direction entirely, suggesting kissing may have originated in South Asia and then spread outward through cultural contact, trade routes, and eventually conquest, rather than being independently invented from scratch by dozens of unrelated cultures. This raises an important question: if kissing has such deep, ancient biological roots tied to bonding and mate selection, why wasn't it universal from the very beginning of human history? One leading theory is that kissing didn't need to be universal because its underlying function, close facial proximity used to gather information about a potential partner, could be satisfied through multiple different physical behaviors depending on what a particular culture developed. The actual act of lip-to-lip kissing may simply be one culturally specific expression of a much older, universal biological drive, the same way different cultures developed completely different greetings, handshakes, bows, cheek touching, that all serve the same underlying social function of acknowledging another person. There's also a chemical reward system driving why kissing feels the way it does once a person is engaged in it, and this part of the science is far better understood than the murky evolutionary origins. Kissing triggers a rapid release of dopamine, the brain's primary reward and motivation chemical, along with oxytocin, often nicknamed the bonding hormone because of its role in strengthening trust and attachment between people. At the same time, kissing has been shown to lower cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, which is part of why a kiss can feel calming in addition to exciting. This combination, a spike in reward chemicals paired with a drop in stress hormones, creates a uniquely powerful physiological experience, one that reinforces the behavior and makes people want to repeat it, regardless of whether they consciously understand any of the biology happening underneath. Modern research has even measured physical changes during a kiss that most people never think about. Heart rate increases. Pupils dilate. In some studies, participants' skin temperature was shown to rise slightly during kissing, a subtle physiological signal of arousal and engagement that the conscious brain barely registers. Perhaps most interesting of all, researchers have found that couples who kiss frequently, not just during romantic or sexual moments, but casually throughout daily life, consistently report higher relationship satisfaction than couples who don't, suggesting kissing may function as an ongoing bonding maintenance behavior rather than something reserved only for high-intensity romantic moments. Children, interestingly, complicate this story in a useful way. Toddlers and young children across nearly every culture studied show physical affection toward parents and caregivers that closely resembles kissing, well before they have any concept of romance or sexuality. This suggests the underlying behavior, mouth-to-mouth or mouth-to-cheek contact as an expression of trust and closeness, predates romantic attraction entirely in each individual human's development, mirroring what anthropologists believe happened over the course of human evolutionary history. The behavior likely started as a parent-child bonding mechanism, tied to feeding and safety, and only later got repurposed by adult brains for an entirely different biological function, mate selection and pair bonding. Put all of these threads together, and kissing stops looking like a simple romantic gesture and starts looking like a behavior with a genuinely layered evolutionary history. It likely began as a practical feeding behavior between mothers and infants. That behavior wired mouth-to-mouth contact to feelings of safety and closeness in the developing human brain. Evolution then repurposed that existing wiring for an entirely new function in adulthood, an up-close biological compatibility check disguised as an act of affection, powered by scent, taste, and hormone exchange the conscious mind never directly perceives. And the specific cultural form that check takes, lips, noses, or something else entirely, turned out to vary from society to society, even while the underlying biological drive stayed remarkably consistent. So the next time a kiss happens, quick, casual, or otherwise, it's worth remembering just how much invisible history is packed into that single moment. It's a parent-infant survival behavior, a genetic compatibility scanner, a dopamine delivery system, and a stress-reducing bonding ritual, all compressed into something that feels, on the surface, like nothing more than two mouths touching for a few seconds. Ancient humans didn't start kissing because someone invented romance out of nowhere. They started kissing because the behavior was already sitting there in the brain, built for an entirely different purpose, just waiting for evolution to find a new use for it.